Hi, John Tisbury here. I received a request from a subscriber, Richie. Let me read it to you. He says, "Hi John, I enjoyed this video and have subscribed." That's obviously not this video, previous video. And he says, "I just got my Shark Mini slider a couple of days back and I'm loving it so far. But I haven't been able to figure out the timeline control part of the app well enough. It'd be great if you'd do a tutorial on it. Thanks." Richie, this is for you. Well, I say it's for you, it's actually for me as well, because this is the app that Richie is talking about. And when I started to research it, I learned quite a few things about the app as well. So a bit of a win-win. So hopefully you'll also find this useful if you have this set up. So without further ado, let's get into it. So see you in a bit. And I've fired up the iFootage app. So the first thing to do is to tell the software how many tracks you're using. And this is really important because it uses this information to configure the length of your timeline in the next step. So if you've put 3 tracks and you're actually using 4, you'll find that your timeline will be too short, and vice versa if you go the other way. And you do that by going into Settings, and then click on the number of tracks that you've got installed. I've got 3 installed, so it's already showing 3 there, so just click OK and job done. Come back out of that, go back on the back arrow there. So that's the first thing to do. We then make sure our devices are connected. You'll see at the top of the screen there, I've got the little slider and the X2 showing, and the percentage on the battery, and the fact that they're both connected. If you want to connect them, you click on the little link icon there and it will show you that they are both connected. Marvellous. Let's go back on that. And then the main feature that we're going to talk about, and what Richie wanted to know about, was this timeline control. So there's this button in the middle here. So I'm going to click that. So working through the screen here, we've got right in the top left hand corner time lapse. If I click on that, it'll give you the option of video or stop motion. We're going to stick with time lapse because that's what we're wanting to do and learn about, so I'm going to leave it on that. And the exposure in seconds is the duration of your shutter speed, of your exposure in seconds. I typically leave this at sort of 1 second, because I'll have my camera set up fully manual and that will be controlling the actual shutter speed. This option here controls when it moves the actual carriage along to the next frame position. So the exposure duration and then the buffer, which is the other one, whatever you choose in there, determines how long in duration there is before the carriage moves along into the next part of the track. So I've done exposure of 1 second and buffer of 1 second, which is typically what I choose. My next one to choose is the frame, so that's the number of frames I want in my time lapse. So let's just make it easy and choose 1000. What happens when you do that, if you notice down at the bottom on the grid, or on the axis, on the vertical axis, it's now divided into 100 frame segments right through to 1000. So on the far left hand side, the vertical axis is the starting point, and on the far right hand side is the ending point. And so that's my 1000 frames, and then I've got 24 frames per second next to it, so I can choose between 24 and 60. I'm going to leave it on 24 frames per second, or so you can choose whatever you need. So that's that set. I can then come down to the bottom area and concentrate on that. The first 3 buttons there, labelled S, P and T, stand for speed, pan and tilt. And if you click on them, that's speed activated. Click on the pan, and you'll see they sort of cycle through the 3 options, and they change colour as well. So the speed one is the magenta line, the pan is the cyan, and the tilt is yellow. I'll talk more about those in a minute. You'll also notice right on the far right there's a little axis that's changing there as well. We'll chat about that in a minute too. So let's set the speed. So press S, and right at the bottom of the grid there you'll see the little white dot, and if you click on that and drag, and what it does, it actually then chooses your starting position for your transition across the tracks. So there it's starting at 193.5. You can see that right in the top right hand corner in magenta colour, 0 because that's the first position, and I'm going to start at 193.5. But if I drag it all the way down to 0 and 0.7, it starts right on the far left hand side of the track. Consequently, if I go to the other side of the timeline and click the little circle and drag it all the way to the top, create a nice diagonal across, you can hear whizzing along in the background. The slider will now go full width of my 3 tracks. If I had 4 tracks, then it would then go the full of my 4 tracks. And that number in that vertical slider on that far right hand side where it says 964, that's the total length of my track. If I had 4 tracks, that would change numbers to a bigger number. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, 1340, something like that. And again, I can adjust that if I want. So if I don't want to use the full length of the track, I can drag that down to whatever number I want, and it will stop at that number. But for this, we'll keep it full length. And once I've done that one, if I click on the P, that will give me my pan. And same principle again, I now click on the pan, so where I want it to start. And here it works out, it's got like a middle line running across the center of that grid. That's with the camera pointing straight out in front of you at sort of 90 degrees to the track. So if I bring it all the way down to the bottom, to -90, it'll point off to the left at 90 degrees. If I bring it all the way to the top, it'll point +90, straight down the grid, basically. Straight down the track. I'm going to put it in the middle. And similarly with the other end, I can move it to where I want to at the end. So it'll rotate, pan round as it goes through the track. Okay, fairly straightforward, I think. Like with most of these, they're a bit of trial and error on the settings until you get used to it. But that's how it works. And then the last one is the tilt. The maximum tilt on this is either plus or minus 35 degrees. And again, you can see on that far right hand side, that vertical bar with the 2 yellow dots on it. One says 35 or plus 35, one says minus 35. So that's your maximum tilts up and down. Principle is the same again. You click on the little dot for your starting position, your starting tilt, and then you click on the far end and drag it to wherever you want for your ending tilt. And they're your main options in terms of speed, pan and tilt. Other things you can do is then set keyframes anywhere along those timelines to bring in some sort of Bezier curves, so you can finesse the ease in and ease out points at various points along the timeline. Probably the easiest way to show you that is on the speed. So what we'll do, all I'm doing is just clicking and dragging with my finger to get my sort of playhead. So I'll just put it at 300. And then I click on the little key icon, which is the keyframe, and it puts a little dot in there for me. And what I can do with that is then move it around. So if I click on it with my finger, it allows me to move it up, it allows me to move it down. So I can sort of do a quick speed ramp up from the beginning to there at point 300, frame 300, and then it'll slow down for the rest of the duration of the sequence. I've got little handles here which I can drag so I can sort of smooth out that or drop it in, drop it out. You've got tremendous flexibility with these. And I also found out today, but if you double click on the little white icon there, you get a little pop-up dialog box which tells you exactly the position on it. I've sort of moved it a bit. It's now at 296 where it was at 300, and the little icons there, U stands for move it up, so I can move it up, down for D, and obviously left and right. And I can also delete it, so if I don't actually want it there, I can delete it. So that's the idea of your keyframes. You can drop them in, drop another one in, and sort of ramp up or ramp down your progress along your timeline across your speed, your pan or your tilt. So that's what those are all about. And you can put as many in as you like, so you can really go to town if you want to. And there you go. Once you're happy with that, you can test it out using the eye icon. So that gives you a preview, it prepares it for you. It'll take it all the way back to 0. It might take a few seconds to do that. You'll hear it whirring in the background. It's now taking that back to 0, and then it'll run through that sequence for you as a preview. Really worth doing this because it will allow you to iron out any particular problems. So this one's speeding up, and it's going to slow down, and it's going to speed up again. I'll stop that, just press stop on that. If you want to save that, you've got the save icon right at the end there, little disk icon, so you can save the path if you know it's going to be one you're going to use again frequently. And then you've got the little forward arrow head, which is the play button, which is the start basically, which will then run the sequence for you. The only other thing I haven't talked about is right in the middle there, between those sets of buttons, 4 sets of buttons, is the intervals that you've set. So here we've got the final output is 41 seconds and 16 frames, if I keep it as it is, and it's going to take me 1 hour 40 minutes to actually do that 1000 frames with that setup. So there you go. So I'm going to just change this because this bit in the middle here is a little bit long, so I'm just going to delete that keyframe, and I'm going to leave that exaggerated ramp there just so you can see that working. I hope you found that useful. Bit of information about the iFootage app and the timeline control aspects of it. If you have, then consider doing 3 things: like, comment and subscribe. If you do already subscribe, well then thank you. You can just do the 2. All right, take care. See you on the next one. Bye.